Welcome to this explainer. Today we are tackling what is absolutely, without a doubt, the single most important health threat you are going to face as a new beekeeper, and that is the Varroa mite. To really put this into perspective, if a honeybee were human-sized, a Varroa mite would be roughly the size of a dinner plate clinging to your chest. Pretty terrifying, right? Our goal right now is to build a solid, fact-based, responsible foundation for managing these mites. We want to empower you with the exact knowledge you need to protect your colonies safely and effectively. Zero guesswork required. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the hidden Varroa threat, then cover why looking isn't monitoring, move into safe sampling, calculate action thresholds, and finally, wrap up with integrated pest management. All right, take a look at that tiny reddish-brown oval. That is Varroa destructor. It is only about the size of a sesame seed, yet this little external parasite is responsible for absolutely massive, heartbreaking apiary losses all over the world. And honestly, the trickiest part for new beekeepers is that your colony can look perfectly strong. I mean, they can be super populous and highly productive, all while these mites are quietly multiplying in the shadows. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the hidden Varroa threat. Here's the formal definition, and honestly, it contains a really critical piece of modern bee science. Varroa is an external parasitic mite. But here's the kicker. It doesn't just suck the bee's blood. It primarily feeds on the honeybee's fat body tissue. And that is devastating, because that tissue is absolutely vital for the bee's immune system and their ability to survive the winter. Worse still, as the mite feeds, it acts like a dirty needle. It vectors and amplifies crippling pathogens, most notably the deformed wing virus. So the true danger here isn't just a pest annoyance. It is a severe weakening of the bee's immunity combined with rapid viral transmission. And this dual lifestyle brilliantly illustrates why treating for Varroa is so complicated. The mite actually has two distinct life phases. During the dispersal phase, adult female mites ride around on the adult worker bees. They tuck themselves deep between the abdominal segments where you literally cannot see them. But the reproduction phase, that happens entirely out of sight, safely hidden under the wax cappings of developing brood. And they especially love hiding in the longer developing drone brood. So think about it. A treatment product that successfully kills mites out in the open on adult bees won't necessarily reach the reproducing mites safely sealed under those wax cappings. Your hive's brood status changes everything. Moving right along to Section 2, why looking isn't monitoring. I want you to really think about this for a second. Why isn't visually inspecting your hive enough to monitor for mites? It's so natural for a beginner to just assume that if they open the box, see a buzzing, active, healthy-looking hive, and don't physically spot any mites, then the colony is perfectly safe. But unfortunately, making that assumption can absolutely cost you your bees. The crucial point we have to remember is that mites are master hiders. They tuck themselves under those abdominal plates and carry out massive population explosions beneath the capped brood. If you wait until you actually see crawling bees, or you spot mites openly riding on a bee's thorax, or you start seeing bees with deformed wings, you aren't catching a problem early. You are looking at a late-stage crisis, and at that point, your colony is already on the brink of collapse. Which brings us to Section 3, safe and accurate sampling. Now, there are quite a few monitoring tools available to you out there, and it is absolutely vital to separate validated adult bee percentages from other types of metrics. A liquid wash using either alcohol or soap is the gold standard. It gives you a highly accurate percentage, though yes, it does sacrifice the bee sample. The powdered sugar roll attempts to be non-lethal, but the recovery rate is highly variable. CO2 devices anesthetize the bees for counting, but your technique heavily influences the final result. Finally, tools like sticky boards or drone brood uncapping are fantastic for observing long-term trends or finding hidden reproduction, but they do not yield a validated adult bee percentage. You simply cannot safely swap a sticky board count for an alcohol wash percentage. They're measuring completely different things. Okay, pause. Before we go any further into the actual physical sampling process, I need to give you the single most important rule of all: queen safety. Accidentally washing your queen creates a far bigger disaster for your colony than the test is even trying to prevent. Before you ever scoop a single bee for a sample, you must learn to find her, and you must protect her by isolating her or her frame. Every single time, no exceptions. So here's the workflow. Once the queen is safely isolated, you'll collect a specific amount of adult bees. We're talking about a known sample size of roughly 300 bees, typically taken from a frame with open brood. Next, you place them in your wash jar with your liquid and agitate correctly. And listen, your technique and the duration of that agitation are just as critical as having the right equipment. Finally, you'll carefully count the mites that dislodge and drop to the bottom. Let's move to Section 4, Calculating Action Thresholds. Calculating your infestation rate is honestly just simple arithmetic. If you collected a standard half-cup sample, which is roughly 300 bees, and you counted 9 mites at the bottom of your wash jar, you just divide 9 by 300 and multiply by 100. That gives you 3 mites per 100 bees, or a 3% infestation rate. Easy enough, right? But what does 3% actually mean for your hive? Well, we cannot prescribe one universal threshold number for every single apiary across the country. An acceptable number in early spring might be a severe drop-everything emergency in late summer. Thresholds vary heavily by season and by your specific region, so you must interpret your percentage using current local guidance. Furthermore, a threshold is an immediate action point. It is not a guarantee that lower numbers are completely harmless. Mite populations can surge incredibly fast, especially if neighboring collapsing colonies cause a wave of mites to drift right into your yard. Let's bring it all together in Section 5, Integrated Pest Management and Treatment Selection. Integrated Pest Management, or IPM, is a comprehensive, multi-layered strategy for colony defense. It means we don't just rely on a chemical rescue at the last minute. We start out by trying to prevent buildup using resistant bee genetics and spacing our hives out to manage drift. We monitor consistently and keep strict records. We use cultural tactics like brood interruption or splitting when appropriate. And when our local thresholds are crossed, we use legal, EPA-registered chemical products. But I really want you to look at that last step. Evaluate. Applying a treatment is just one rung on the ladder. Taking a post-treatment verification sample is an absolute must to prove that your intervention actually caused the mite level to fall. If your sample dictates that a treatment is necessary, how on earth do you choose? While your specific colony conditions are going to act as your filter. Is kept brood present protecting reproducing mites? Are the temperatures outside too hot or too cold for certain products? Are your honey supers actively on the hive? We absolutely must adopt the mindset that the label is the law. I really cannot stress this enough. Please avoid off-label, homemade kitchen chemistry treatments. They are illegal, they are dangerous to you, and they can very easily kill your bees or contaminate your honey. You must read the current EPA and state label, wear your required personal protective equipment, and make sure you are rotating those active ingredients so the mites don't develop resistance. If you take away nothing else from our explainer today, please remember this empowering core message. Assume exposure. Sample your bees carefully. Act using legal, appropriate methods based on your local thresholds. And always verify your results with a follow-up sample. Do not wait for visual symptoms to tell you there is a problem. You have the tools right now to keep your bees healthy and strong. Varroa is certainly the central health challenge in the apiary, but a well-rounded beekeeper must be prepared for the others as well. Now that you've got a solid, fact-based foundation for managing mites, ask yourself, if you opened your hive tomorrow and saw spotty brood, would you actually know if it was a mite issue? Or could it be a completely different hidden disease? From here, we're going to expand your diagnostic skills to cover the rest of the threats you might encounter out in the bee yard. So join me next as we tackle common honeybee pests and diseases.